So, what does the U.S. get wrong about China, and how would you advise them to think about China?
The US political system is decentralized, and because of the need to win votes, it goes through emotional phases. And it's entering such a phase now where China is demonized out of mass emotion. There's some manipulation behind the scenes, but it's not based on knowledge. You ask those who are anti-China, where's Luoyang? Where's Singapore? They won't be able to tell you, but they have strong emotions. They know everything about Tibet, they know everything about Xinjiang. But really, so it's not sustainable, and they don't understand the nature of China. Why is China always building walls around itself? Every dynasty rebuilds the Great Wall. And even today, capital markets, Hollywood movies, COVID, China is constantly building walls around itself because it is happy in its own homogeneity. It has a very different nature from America. But the Americans think that China wants to displace them as top dog in the world. And because of that, it's trying to contain China, even pull it down, if possible. And my fear is it may exhaust itself in the process, and I don't think it will succeed. You take this latest move to impose 100% tax on EVs. I mean, the Qing dynasty did that right in the 19th century. And the result was the world passed it by, and within a few decades, its position plummeted in the world. That's the danger of shutting out the world. The Europeans can't do it, not the Germans, so they said, no, we will rise to the challenge of China. And whether it's Mercedes-Benz or BMW, these are very solid organizations, and I think they will put up a stiff resistance, and in some ways will remain better than the Chinese. But if you say, no, hide behind the walls, 100% tariff, you become very weak. But this is the phase Americans are going through. But I fear that on multiple fronts now, they are facing very difficult challenges. You look at, but the Democrats are more globalists. I mean, they express American exceptionalism. They feel that America should be dominant everywhere, and its values should prevail everywhere. I don't think they can succeed. Trump is more isolationist. He tells NATO partners, if you don't cough up, it's like your insurance. If you don't pay your premium, the policy is cancelled. NATO won't defend you. People are in shock when he talks like that. But does it make sense? In a way, he does. Because if I am an ordinary American, who's paying for all this? Well, if you can print the US dollar, that's okay. But one day, you cannot just print dollar like that, and it'll be a choice between guns and butter. So my money goes to guns or for my butter. There's no question how they will vote. So the key event will be when the primacy of the US dollar breaks. We all know you have to break sometime or other because it's abnormal. If it's 30 years from now, well, let's drink and be merry. But if it's 5 years, well, we've got to calculate, right? Do we know when the cookie will crumble? We don't know. But the way the US is moving is bringing forward that date. I mean, they try to control countries by sanctions. And if you are subject to sanctions, it's no joke. I mean, I have Hong Kong friends. One of them is quite senior in the administration. They say, no, I'm completely beholden to my wife. I can't have a credit card, I don't have a bank account. All my assets are with her, I better be nice to her. So if you're under sanctions, it's no joke. So when they threaten the ICC, you put out an arrest warrant on Netanyahu, will go after you and your family members. A number of US senators have signed that. So of course the ICC has to stand up to it. But I'm quite sure privately, they will say, this is a serious matter. Not just me, but also my entire family. Then how do I operate? But how long can you pursue this cause? So last night, India Yesterday, India signed an agreement with Iran to open up a new corridor from Chabahar to the Caspian to Central Asia. Now, Chabahar was used by the Indians to supply the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan. With US support, they closed one eye. But now the US have moved out from Afghanistan. India is left without a capability in Inner Asia. So strategically, they need access. And the US said, we will sanction you. I don't think the US can afford to sanction India because they want India to side with them against China. The Indians know it. The Indians are playing a very clever game. They say, well, we are buying arms from Russia. We're selling arms to Russia. We'll have access to Iran. And do your worst. I don't think the US will dare to do its worst. And everywhere now, the US will find countries standing up to them. So you can no longer contain Iran. You can't contain North Korea with Russia as a member of the Security Council refusing to vote to continue the surveillance facility on North Korea. So this is the kind of situation we're entering. And it's a bit strange. Last night, I do not know whether you read your report this morning. Blinken was in Kiev. And he went to an underground bar, literally underground bar, to strum the guitar and sing Neil Young's Living the Free World. And it's all over the internet now. Why did he do that? There's war going on around him, I thought it's very strange. Something is happening. So we better be very alert. We're entering a great transition. US-China is part of it. India is part of it. Middle East is part of it. Ukraine and Gaza are certainly a part of it. And one way or another, it will affect us in Southeast Asia. There's information warfare against China. Yes, China faces a lot of problems. They punctured the real estate sector. It will take them years to sort it out, but they put a bottom to it because it's on everybody's balance sheet and they can't afford for it to implode. I think the real estate sector in China has bottomed out. There'll still be scares here and there, but by and large it's bottomed out. But it will not go back to the go-go years of the past. Not for many years, if ever. Is China in trouble? I don't think so. Look at their factories, look at their EVs. Look at how terrified the Europeans are, accusing China of having overcapacity. How can you blame China for overcapacity when you're taking liberties with yourself, having long summers and working short hours? And you say, no, you are working too hard. There are consequences. And if families take liberties with their children or with themselves, there are consequences. So if you look at Asia, look at China, look at Southeast Asia, look at India. There are people who are hardworking, who obsess over their children, who want to have of them a higher education, who will scream in order that their kids will have a better education, better health, a better life. In the end, the governments will sort themselves out and they'll do well. And we're lucky to be in the part of the world where strange values have not taken over societies. Let's ask ourselves, 19th century, Qing Dynasty China, the opium problem. Of course, it is the evil of the West, selling opium to China. But why was there a market? Why was there a market that insisted on opium to drug pain and suffering? Why is America such a big market for drugs today? And I was watching the Eurovision contest in clips of it. The big issue was how the Israeli contestant was being booed and so on. It's very unfair to her, but there's politics. But parts of it, almost satanic. But it's now part of the fashion, the mores of Europe. What is happening? PM Lee talked about how we should keep all these woke things away from us as much as possible. I fully agree with him. Keep our societies wholesome. Keep our families intact. I mean, AI is very important, but AI cannot answer moral questions for us. In the end, it's every individual, every child who must make the choice. Be immersed in technology, make use of it, but have our own sense of what it means to be a human being. So if we use that as a template to judge human society, I say we are very lucky to be in a part of the world where societies by and large are wholesome and will do well. But of course, if there's war, then everything gets upset. So there must be an overriding desire and mission to keep the peace in the region, to keep conflicts within bounds. I think ASEAN will be okay. ASEAN is not held together by love, it is held together by fear. Because even if you're Indonesia, you know that others are much bigger. And if we don't stick together, we'll be balkanized. And instead of becoming neighbors, we become clients of big powers. Instead of using them, they make use of us. That's always the threat. It's like the Philippines now. The Philippines have legitimate disputes with China. Both sides have their cases. The Americans see an opportunity there and jump in. They bring in the Japanese. And now Philippine politics is caught up in this. Can an accident happen? Yes. Will it lead to war? I doubt it. Because in the end, interests will assert themselves. And the business community in the Philippines, which has a strong Chinese component, they don't like what they're seeing. And below the emotions, the Filipinos know that in the end they need economic development. And to some extent, if the Americans are somewhere, they strengthen their negotiating position with China. So China must manage this skillfully, understanding the domestic politics, understanding that deep inside, the Filipinos are pro-American. I remember when the Filipinos asked the Americans to leave Clark and Subic base. They said, GI, go home, but bring me along with you. So this is the Philippines as it is. So China must work with it and find a way to save face. I mean, they had an agreement, a gentleman's agreement with Duterte, which Marcos has repudiated. So, okay. So they must find a new way to equilibrate and make use of the Americans and not be made use of by the Americans. But that's very difficult. When you try to make use of a big power, you end up being made use of by them. So Singapore has learned that lesson. We are very careful. Then you look at Vietnam. Vietnam has made a very important decision to go with China. It was not well reported, but Vietnam has agreed that Hanoi will be linked to Kunming and Nanning by high-speed rail. This is big, because each connection is tens of billions of dollars and will change the topological configuration of logistics and supply chain and human movement for decades to come. The Vietnamese held back this decision for a long time, but they're cracking down on corruption. China is now an inspiration to the General Secretary, but he's having one hell of a fight in Vietnam. But I think in the end, they have no choice. Because if the Communist Party is termite-ridden, there's no hope for Vietnam. They know it. And they didn't fight the French and Americans, nothing. And just this month, just maybe today, I think, they are celebrating the 70th anniversary of their victory over the French in Dien Bien Phu. Generations died to secure the independence. They are not going to throw it all away by allowing corrupt officials to take over the country. And they're watching China and the way it's going. So they will take that same route. Indonesia, Prabowo, first visit to China, people scratched their heads. Why did he do that? And when he met Xi Jinping, it was Xiao Ti talking to Daka, little brother talking to big brother. But when he went to Japan, then it's brother talking to brother. But don't be mistaken, because Southeast Asians have seen China in early incarnations. They know the Chinese like all these things. So when they go to China, they will bow and they will scrape and so on. But it doesn't mean that they are servile inside. And if interests are involved, they will assert themselves, as we see in the Philippines. But it's part of Li, it's part of the ritual of relations with China. And look at the other countries, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Brunei. No one wants China to be an enemy. And the Americans don't understand this yet. That because China is getting bigger and bigger for us, all of us want the Americans to be in the room. But if the Americans say, no, you have to choose between China and us, then we say, no, we can't. How can we choose? I mean, China is where our side of the bread is buttered, But if they don't ask us to choose, then every door, every window is open to the Americans. And they will not have to pay a cent. I think eventually they will come to this realization. The Europeans and Japanese already know it. But it will take time. And this is a transition that unfortunately we have to go through.